All right, we're gonna have a very interesting conversation tonight. We're bringing on Azizzada. He's an organizer for Afghans for a Better Tomorrow. He's also a journalist, a filmmaker, as well as a community and labor organizer. Arash, welcome.
Hey there, thanks for having me on today.
Oh, no problem. So I'm curious, Afghans for a Better Tomorrow. I don't want to be insulting, so I'm just going to say, obviously you're against the Taliban. So I know this, but I want the audience to know it. Were you for withdrawal or against withdrawal?
We were for the withdrawal, but I think what we did do is anticipate that no matter how well you would plan a withdrawal, and a withdrawal does not happen outside the context of the occupation. And now we see that the withdrawal is as disastrously executed as the occupation. However, regardless of that, we were in favor of ending the occupation and in favor of the withdrawal. That being said, there's a lot of things the US can still do today to alleviate some of the harm and pain it's currently causing.
So I want to get to those solutions because you have interesting thoughts on that too. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's a super interesting point and one I haven't seen it anywhere else. But before we get there, what's also interesting is being against the Taliban and being for withdrawal. By the way, I agree on both of those things. But being from Afghanistan originally, your background, it puts you in an interesting spot. So what were you hoping happened? Like, yeah, well, let me start there.
Well, we got together, me and two other organizers, and I have to give them full credit for being on this kind of crazy week with me. Back in late April and May, we saw that the Biden administration announced its withdrawal. And there's four things we immediately thought that the US could do alongside some other countries in the world community. First, we said we need to push for a political settlement. We don't think continued conflict or US partaking in that conflict was good. Secondly, we thought the US and especially the European Union, both these leading countries should open their doors to refugees. Then third, we were pushing for continued aid to flow into Afghanistan to prevent a humanitarian disaster. And then fourth, we pushed for the US to end its so-called military and over-the-horizon capabilities, such as drone strikes and CIA-backed squads.
So your thoughts on refugees is what I was referencing before, and I'm going to come back to that. But let me ask you the impossible question, which is, how do you beat the Taliban in Afghanistan? Because it ain't militarily, apparently. So in your ideal world, how would we have gotten a free Afghanistan that isn't under the oppressive rule of the Taliban?
Well, I think I have to kind of take you back 20 years in history, or perhaps 45, and we can sit here and discuss 45 years of failed US foreign policy towards the Afghan people and the Afghan nation state. I won't do that, but what I can say is that we can go at any point, whether it's 2001, 2005, 2012 even, and we could have pushed for a political settlement. We could have had kind of the political guts to say, hey, the Taliban is unfortunately not defeatable by a United States ran imperial project. And let's come together to push for a settlement that causes the least amount of harm. But the US spent all these years continuing to push for a military solution. Then when it was actually, when it became a political issue that the Trump administration and even the Biden administration could use as a political wedge, saying, hey, we need to focus things here at home. That's when it threw the Afghan people under the bus. It elevated and empowered the Taliban. And so there's a variety of different things the United States could do. It could have not cut out the Afghan government, as corrupt as they are, out of the Doha Accords. And it could have helped evacuate thousands of people and not basically do a military exit of Afghanistan that prioritizes US interest and throws Afghan people under the bus.
So I have a controversial opinion. So I'm from a Muslim background. I grew up in Turkey and then came here. But this is not about Islam. This is about fundamentalism. I think we should have a cultural war against fundamentalism. And so now it's very hard when you've invaded a country and you're the imperial force that's occupying it. You're not likely to win that cultural war because the people see you as occupiers. It actually strengthens the Taliban's cause in a sense. But what do you think about conducting a cultural war like that and really engaging and saying fundamentalism is wrong and you shouldn't listen to them? And how do we do that, right? Can America have a role in that or can it not? What are your thoughts there?
I think the United States has not only a role to play in this, but has a moral obligation. And the moral obligation is to, in the first place, not have occupied Afghanistan for 20 years. Well, now it did, and so we can't reverse that. What it now can do to try to alleviate some of the pain it has caused is to take in refugees, to continue to send humanitarian aid, to not be involved in Afghanistan militarily. These are the things they can do. And currently, the United States can actually secure an airport, make it functional, make it secure, make it operational, and evacuate people who are currently who are vulnerable, who are at risk, and who are fearing for their lives, who are going from safe house to safe house, who are desperately emailing folks like me and other folks in our community. That's what it can do in order to alleviate pain and participate in the world and have a positive contribution.
Yeah, so let's talk about the refugees. And I want to see if your idea, well, I might have taken it to a different level, but when you say accept refugees from Afghanistan, how broad are you thinking?
I think I look back as a 33-year-old person who lives in the United States, who's lived here for 20 years. And I look back at the history of 45 years of failed policies on the US's end that have done nothing but contribute to harm. You know, whether it's participating in the proxy war in the 80s, or whether it's abandoning the Afghan people in the 90s, or whether it's participating in the 20-year occupation of Afghanistan. Any refugee that seeks safety, that seeks refuge, and that any Afghan refugee that seeks human dignity deserves to be in this country, and it deserves to be in Canada and the UK and the Netherlands and France and any other NATO coalition partner who participated in the 20-year occupation.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if we had that rule, probably wars like Afghanistan and Iraq would have never been started in the first place. Which is, if you're going to invade a country, well then at the end of the war, you must accept anyone who is a refugee from that war. Not just people who helped troops, not just translators, etc., but anyone in that country. You broke it, you own it, to quote Colin Powell's old statement about Iraq. And of course, Arash, that would pretty much end all wars because there's no way America would do that, right?
I have high hopes, like the name of our campaign is called Afghans for a Better Tomorrow. We believe that a better tomorrow is possible, both for the American people, but for Afghans as well. And I would say also the best argument one can make right now for the US opening its doors is you've done this in the past. You did this for the Cubans in the 1960s. There was an open door policy that lasted almost 50 years, well into the Obama administration. And then you also did it after Vietnam in 1975. And so there is definitely precedent for this. And not only that, the folks who are trying to leave, they're my friends. Some of them are my family. They're my friends' family and friends. These are the best people out of Afghanistan. This is a brain drain. This is disastrous for a future state of Afghanistan. But they deserve refuge. But they are the most educated. They are the brightest. They have the best ideas. They are intellectuals. They are the folks who can make a difference, and they would be well integrated into American society or somewhere in Europe or somewhere in neighboring countries. And the US should do whatever it can in its power, which it has the power to. The question is, does it have the political will? That's where I come in, because I say you can do it, you should do it. But any person who seeks refuge, the United States should help them, facilitate that, and offer refugee resettlement services and money and funds as well.
Yeah, I think it's our moral obligation. You're right. There's certainly precedent for it. We have an open door policy on Cuba today. And so why not for Afghanistan? And many other countries like North Korea, where we were involved in a war, and then those people got caught on the wrong side, and they've been living in concentration camps, etc. But right now, most pressing need is to actually rescue people whose lives are in danger in Afghanistan as we speak. And so our refugee policy should be as broad as possible for that particular country at a minimum, after all the destruction that we did. So that brings me at the end to your family story, because I don't know it and I'm curious about it. Because America might have done more damage during the Russian occupation than we did during the American occupation, because we did so much propaganda to encourage violence in Islam. We not only gave weaponry, but we almost created the Mujahideen through our propaganda, saying you attack the atheists, the godless Soviets, the godless communists, and real Islam is violent Islam. And so do your parents remember a time in Afghanistan when it was more liberal society?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way to describe it, my parents remembered when the US wasn't meddling in Afghan affairs. And I think if you carefully read the history of what happened, for me to not have sit here in front of you in Los Angeles, California, for me to not have been a product of displacement, for me to not have been the children of refugees, it would have meant that the US did not send literature in the mid-1970s to encourage Islamic fundamentalism. It would have not used the Mujahideen in the 80s as a tool in the proxy war against the Soviet Union. And then the history right after that is once they accomplished their mission and used these Islamic fundamentalists to their own means, they forgot about the Afghan people. And then all of a sudden they were surprised that Afghanistan was used as a place where folks were training people to fly buildings into planes. Okay, so what is the lesson we can take into the today? Like, in fact, like, I understand folks don't want to take in more refugees. I very much disagree with all those people. I understand it, but these people, U.S. foreign policy, this administration going back all the way to the Carter administration, have created this crisis. This is 45 years of pain and misery that the Afghan people have endured, and the least they deserve is dignity. And let me just make the point as well. Nobody wants to leave Afghanistan. Even when I went back there, I was like, I would rather have nothing to be able to live here in safety. And unfortunately, that's not possible, because now there's repressive rule and nobody wants to live under that too. So the least the US owes us is, the least the US owes the Afghan people is safety and refuge. It's relatively simple.
All right, Arash Azizzada for Afghans for a Better Tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining us, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.